It's Tuesday, June 11th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Father's Day weekend is upon us, so it is grow time, folks. We are squarely into the magic of gardening season, so we'd love for you to tell us, how does your garden grow? And if you have questions about how to get it to grow better, we're here for you. And thanks to Andrew Hawthorne for filling in yesterday. I took a day off, but you will. There were tickets that were given away, right, for the debaters. Guess what? I scrounged up today another set of tickets that we're going to give away, right? So it's kind of ticket palooza lately here on The Signal. So the show, I believe the one I have tickets for, it's the Monday show. It starts both nights anyways, Monday, Tuesday, 7 p.m. at the Holy Heart Theatre. Monday's cast, I mean, a great cast. We've got Noor Hadidi, Hisham Kaladi, Stacey McGunigal, Chris Wilson, Patrick Ledwell, and John Sheehan, who was on the show yesterday. Thanks for that, John. Bree Parsons, who's also a local amazing talent. Nikki Payne, Dave Hempstead, Lisa Baker, you name it. It's going to be a great show, and I'll be there. I'll be there hanging out. I'm going to introduce Monday night's show. So here's how it's going to work. If you literally do anything to contact us today, real big challenge one today. If you do anything from an email to a text or you call the show, your name is going to be put in a hat to win a pair of these tickets. And then we'll be in touch because why not? And I'm also going to give away some more tickets for something completely different tomorrow. And we'll just see how long we can keep this ticket train rolling. That being said, down to the business at hand of the day, Gardening Day, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. Text us, 709-327-8206. Emails, thesignal@cbc.ca. And like I said, if you literally do anything, you could win tickets. We've got Tim Walsh, nursery manager, Memorial University's Botanical Garden. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Does my name go in for that ticket?
Sure. we can toss it up. We'll everyone. We'll toss everyone in.
Sorry, yeah, Debaters is a great show.
So good.
Yeah,
I'm really excited about this because Lee Pitts is the senior producer so Lee Pitts from here is the senior producer for comedy now. The funny thing, actually, about Lee is that he's been working at the little office he works in upstairs. It's the size of a phone booth. And I find if you're the head of comedy for this kind of a thing, that's a pretty funny little...
It seems kind of appropriate, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It does, like a comedic take on it. So talking to Lee about this, I'm introducing folks one night, Chrissy Holmes on the Tuesday. Have always loved the debaters, so this is very exciting.
Yeah, great show. Great fun.
How's... I feel bad. So for the rest of the province, everyone, I know folks have had some great weather through this spring. It's been a bit of a different story on the Avalon Peninsula.
Absolutely.
So what I'm about to say, if you're not in St. John's Metro, I will just say it's a fantastic day here, and I feel bad for bringing you in from the garden to sit indoors when it's so nice out.
Well, this is a really if I'm going to come indoors for anything, this is a good one. It's a great topic. I can talk this topic forever. And you're right. It is tough to be indoors on a day like today with the stint of bad weather we've had. When you look around, certainly you don't tend to see it in the plants. The plants seem to be doing their thing. And obviously there's lots of solar radiation gets through the cloud cover anyways to allow the plants to continue to do their thing in terms of the trees and the shrubs and the grass and all those other plants that are out there year round. But it is just a bit more challenging, or has been a bit more challenging for us who are growing seasonal plants that start off indoors and we then want to move them outdoors and get them out into the garden. It's been tough for some of that growth because it's been a big transition for those plants to put them out in the weather we've been having. So it just means for very careful protection of those plants until the things seem to change. And you know what? I think things are changing like right now.
It's grow time, baby.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're here. We did it.
I looked this morning and I feel bad for my brother who's been here for the last 6 weeks. He's from here originally, he lives in Ontario, got a place here now, and has spent the last 6 weeks just home doing some outdoor things around the house. He's renovating outdoors, doing some landscaping, that sort of thing. And he's had a tough time. And guess when he went back? This morning.
Oh, my.
I wouldn't dare send them a screenshot of the forecast because I thought that would be too cruel.
Yeah.
But I did look at the forecast, and the next week is looking good, and especially the nighttime temperatures, which are the biggest challenge for transitioning plants from indoors to out. The days may be fine, but if the nights are still going down to like 4 and 5, then that's a bit of a challenge. But the nighttime temperatures are all up to close to 10. And
again, as I've kind of learned slowly but surely over the last couple of years from taking over from Ramona and sitting in here for gardening day, I too have started looking at things like nighttime temperatures.
Absolutely.
I've been looking at them this week, and then like this morning, my wife and I were in like the royal we. She's doing most of this, but we were moving out. We're trying to grow some perilla leaves. For like Korean barbecue, and then watching like on the windowsill, they've been so slow with it. But today, I swear, I'm fairly certain this morning when we put them out on the patio, they were just growing in front of us. Right?
I believe it. Yeah, we see a difference today, even in just the few hours that have passed. In this day, we have seen plants in the greenhouse needing water already. Once that sun shines, boy, it's a powerful thing. And the plants have lots of leaves, and so they immediately start to increasing their moisture intake in order to compensate for the moisture that they lose through their leaves, because that's what happens with plants. They sweat just like we do. And when we sweat, we drink water and drink liquids. Well, plants do the same, but they take it up through the root system, of course. And so when they're sitting in this greenhouse or they're sitting in a sheltered area and it's been overcast and kind of quiet for the last few weeks, it's a gentle rate of water absorption, water use, but then all of a sudden the sun comes out and things ramp up. So, yeah.
Folks have been texting me and emailing me over the last few days in the lead up to today, which has been happening this season, which I love. Right,
that's great.
It's to get a note for questions, and so what I do is when I get emails before the day, I kind of put them into a little page in our system here for scripts, and so like if at any time I miss one of your emails, folks, just send me a reminder, and it will be in. I'll make sure to get it in. So I'm going to ask one question, then I'll meander my way through the other ones after, because we've got a couple folks on the line who we're going to get to as well. So I will say Tim Walsh is here at Gardening Day, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. The text line, 709-327-8206, and emails thesignal@cbc.ca. And folks, please send us your, you want to brag or give us some garden photo updates, please email The Signal. We love getting them. It's just so great to see what you're all growing through the season. Here's a question from Marcia. I seem to forget this every year. When is the best time to plant annuals and get veggies into a raised bed? Is there danger of frost into late June? And this comes back to that Father's Day bit in my intro.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, so we're getting there now. In fact, I'd be thinking about it now this week. So generally, we use the 15th of June as our date. So today is the 10th, 11th. So it's only 4 more days. And you can look ahead to the next 4 days and see that, as we were just talking about, the daytime temperatures are good, the nighttime temperatures are good as well. So as long as the materials that you're going to plant, whether it's an annual or whether it's a vegetable, they're basically smallish plants that have been started from seed. And if you're doing them yourself, then you've nurtured those plants along quite gingerly and tenderly up until this point. The next challenge for you is to harden them off, which is basically getting them used to those outdoor temperatures. Yes, the days are nice now and the nights are not so cold, but still the plants are probably used to being growing indoors in a greenhouse or on your window ledge or wherever it is that you're growing your plants. So it still requires that hardening off process where you put your plants out for a couple of hours today and you take them back in, and then the next day you put them out for a longer period. You do that for 2-3 days. That's all it takes. And for the sake of that little bit of effort, when you look at all the work that you've done up to this point, for the sake of getting them damaged because you did that too fast. Because, yes, the sun is great. That's exactly what we want. But a full-on sunshine on a plant that's been tenderly grown indoors, that's a tough thing too. So do that gingerly and tenderly, and you'll be ready to go. So I would say end of this week, it's time to go, time to roll for sure. Yeah,
veggies into a raised bed as well.
Yeah. Now, if you're buying plants that from nurseries, the nursery would have already got those plants hardened off for you.
Yeah.
So if they're selling them now, it means that they feel that they're ready to go as well. So, yeah.
Excellent. Let's go to the lines. We got Neil on the line from Carbonear. How you doing?
Not bad, sir, yourself.
Good, bye. Good. How's the weather in Carbonear? Nice, like in St. John's?
Well, oh yes. Well, yes. There's I call it 3/4 sun, eh?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's about I don't know, 17, 18 degrees, something like that. 19 here now on my thermometer, so it's a great day to grow stuff. How's that?
There you go.
You know.
Yeah.
No, years ago we talk about. I'd go back to some my ancestry growing stuff, and they wouldn't plant anything until after the first full moon in June.
Yes.
Did you ever hear that?
I have, yes.
Yeah, well, the first full moon in June, this very far from my calendar, is the 21st.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
what's that? What's today? Today's the
11. So it's another 10
you know,
days.
I mean, but I know that's only in the middle of my wives' tales, but
No, it's a good thing to be thinking about because it basically what happens then is that there definitely is traditionally a change in the weather patterns for us come that full moon.
Yeah.
So sometimes
right,
you can
yeah.
get that change a little bit leading up to it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to wait right till the moon is full. You
No,
could
but
actually, if you look at the weather patterns going forward and it looks like the weather is good up for the next few days, then yeah, that's a good thing to think about for sure. But
So is this a
Yeah,
Cape,
good thing.
Cape and roll thing too? Because I'm thinking full moon, high tides.
all around, all
that
happens
together.
around the same time. Yeah.
that's right. And you gather your cape on traditionally the free potatoes, right?
That's
So,
right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it all comes in turn at the same time.
Yeah.
And my mother's from freshwater here, and we never ever planted anything till after we got out of school. You know,
That's right. Yeah.
and that's sometime around the 20th of June. You know, so we always had good crops. Although I don't think now the breeds of potatoes and that don't seem to be the same anymore. But
Yeah, there's
I
probably
don't
something
know.
there. But now that's a good point, Neil, because I think that we're all sometimes just a little bit anxious to get going because it's such a short season here, and we have such a long wait for it that we're chomping at the bit to kind of get things in the ground. But the thing to remember is that we have such a lovely autumn, like late summer and into the autumn, that we don't really get any damaging frosts or anything up until late October, even at some years, and sometimes even November. So the rush to get it into the ground may not be necessary if you realize that you've got plenty of time on the other end.
yeah, we do. Yes, I always tell a story to a friend of mine, and she taught school out in Winnipeg.
Mm-hmm.
And one year, the first day of school, which was 7th of September, she went to work behind snowplow.
Oh wow!
Right?
Yeah.
7th of September. So when she went to school, of course, her colleagues said, well, what's it like down in Newfoundland? She said, hang on now, she said. I called Dad. She got Dad on the speakerphone. He said, it's the 7th of September, 24 degrees and sunny.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so she sort of rubbed it in a little bit,
Of course.
But we get a great growing season. I mean, my ancestry always said, well, the vegetables don't put on any weight until September.
That's right.
You know what I mean? The turnips, and the cabbages and the carrots. I mean, I leave my vegetables in the ground up until almost Christmas,
Yeah.
And some of the stuff is still growing in November. We get 12 or 13 degrees of sun in November. There's no reason why you should pull it up.
That's right. Yeah. Well, the other thing too, of course, especially if you're looking at it from traditionally from how our parents, grandparents would have grown food, they would have been thinking ahead to the long winter and being able to store those plants. So they wouldn't be quick to put those in storage because once you pick something and harvest it, then you got to store it. So if you can leave it in the ground as long as you can, and then just harvest it, dry it off in the sunshine for a couple of days, and then put it in storage, then you got a much better chance of them storing properly and getting you through the next spring.
That's right. I mean, you pull your carrots up mid-September, come Christmas, they're finished,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But if you leave them in the ground in November, you might get to probably March out of them,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway,
no
it
rush.
was nice talking to you guys. Anyway, I'll keep listening to the show, and you fellas have a good day now, and happy gardening, and happy sunshine, what have you.
Thanks, Neil. You
right.
too.
Okay. All the
Cheers.
best. Thank you.
All right, let's move on. We got Mac on the line calling from St. John's. Hi.
Yes, good afternoon, Tim. Good afternoon.
Hey, Mac, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
But I have a bit of a problem with strawberries. Now, I've been growing strawberries both here in town and out at my Middle Gull Pond for the past 20 years. And I've had no problems, probably the last 30 years, no problems with them at all, other than the occasional frost.
Right.
After the blossoms get out and they'll turn black.
Yeah.
Now, my strawberries now are opening up the last couple of days, in blossom, and the inside of each one is black, and we've had no frost. And I went online and poked around, and it looks like we've got strawberry bud weevils. Are you familiar with that?
Well, I'm familiar with weevils, certainly. I didn't know there was one specifically for the strawberries, but weevils are a common insect in Newfoundland, and you probably have seen weevils. You see them every once in a while. You see the odd one. They kind of walk very mechanically. They're black, and they've got the adult is black, and it's got a snout almost,
That's right. They've got a bit of a nose on them.
Exactly.
And this fellow is black, and he's got little black, but he's got little white marks on his back.
Right. Yeah.
And they evidently get in, and they eat the pollen as the flower is opening up.
Uh-huh.
And as fast, they must have got in there in the fall of last year, because I was just out looking at them, and as they're opening up today, they're already eaten.
Right.
It's not as if they're coming in there after the flower opens up.
Right.
They've been in there and done their work. And I would say 90% of my blossoms that are opened up have been, they're destroyed. So I'll get no fruit at all from those.
No, that's disappointing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It
is. It seems that we're getting more and more of these insects with the. I had the same problem with my lilies and these Japanese red beetles.
Yeah, they're becoming a problem.
And now we have these things into the strawberries. And I'm wondering were you familiar with any problem with the big strawberry growers? Have they had any problem with this?
I certainly haven't heard. I'm intrigued now, though, so I'm going to be researching that when we're done for sure. But weevils, inevitably there's going. For instance, if you talk about the lily beetle, the scarlet lily beetle, these things that kind of move around on plant material, because the lily beetle is a problem in all parts of Canada, certainly, because it's in Ontario, it's in Western Canada. It's a problem, and the thing is that unfortunately, because we ship things around so much now, lots of materials coming in for sale in our stores that are grown in other provinces, that it's almost inevitable that we will
bringing these critters with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we weren't an island, we probably would have had them anyways. Where other parts of the connected mainland, the insects are free to move around without any kind of impedance in terms of their travel. And of course, then you factor in the global warming idea and the fact that maybe the winters aren't as cold as they used to be at times, because the winters were opportunities to check those insect populations and kill off a lot of them that might be trying to overwinter, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that sometimes interferes with their spread as well.
Anyway, I'm saying unfortunately, I've got another appointment. I've got to leave now, but I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad tidings, but I have to go, but I'm going to listen to any responses on my car radio, and then we'll hear if anybody else has had any problems with them. But
okay. All right, that's great, and thanks for calling, Mac. I'm really interested about that now. I'll have to check that out for sure.
Good stuff. Well, thanks for your attention. Righto. Have a great program. Thanks very much. Righto.
All right, thanks, Max. Sorry about the strawberries. Safe driving. Oh, and speaking of pests, Judy Mitchell sent me a note for your next gardening show. The cabbage moth is in the east end of St. John's. Today is Thursday, June 6th. So Judy sent me this Thursday, and I'm making the announcement for everyone out there. The cabbage moth is in the east end of St. John's.
Bring in your children. The cabbage moth are everywhere. They're not just and it's actually a butterfly. Believe it or not. Yeah. Oh. I mistakenly call it a moth all the time too, because it's just this plain white moth-looking butterfly.
And butterfly to me sounds like such a nice thing.
Well, it is.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But ravenous appetite.
But even butterflies, and the thing is that in this particular case, the host plant for this butterfly is members of the cabbage family. So it's not just cabbages, it's broccolis, it's cauliflowers, and there's even a few weeds in Newfoundland that are in that family as well, and they will lay on that plant. It's just an amazing ability that insects have for finding target plants that they need in order to reproduce.
Yeah.
So they lay their eggs on there, and they just flit around and quickly dip their abdomen underneath the edge of the leaf, up underneath the leaf even, not on the surface, and deposit an egg. And they'll do that repeatedly and deposit hundreds of eggs.
Picking them off?
And you're picking them off when if you see the eggs, it's hard because they're tiny, but you got to wipe them off. But what happens is they develop into a caterpillar, and the caterpillar immediately starts to feed on the leaves.
Yeah. And
it also, because it's feeding on this leaves with all this chlorophyll, this green color, the insect, the caterpillar takes on the green color as well. So it's camouflaged against the foliage, so it's really hard to see. But what you do see are holes in the leaves, and you see poop from the caterpillar deposited on the leaf.
Right.
And it's just one of those things. If you like stinging nettle, for instance, which a lot of people do, because it makes great nutritious tea, and people make pesto from it. But there's a red admiral butterfly, which that's its host plant, and it lays its eggs on there, and it'll devour stinging nettle piles with these caterpillars. But nobody seems to care too much about that because it's a stinging nettle. All right,
yeah,
it's doing the same thing as the cabbage butterfly is doing. So yeah.
Yvadi's on the line, calling from Glovertown. Hi.
Hello, beautiful day.
Gorgeous day. Thanks for those pictures of my nan at the event, by the way.
Thank you. We had a good evening. So last Sunday, at our church, have a service about butterfly kiss. That's very nice. Beautiful butterfly, but it's when they're in the beginning. Okay, my two questions is, I bought a fertilizer, and a potato, potato fertilizer. So in maybe a kilo or 2 kilo. So I don't have many potato in my garden. So can I use them with another plant like carrot? And my garlic is turned yellow on the top. So I bought another packet of, they call J-O-B, something like that. In the picture, they show the tulip picture and the onion. So can I use that one for my garlic?
Okay, that's a great question. Okay. Yeah, so do you know the formula of the fertilizer? Was it was it a granular fertilizer or something that you would distribute on the soil and kind of work it in?
Yeah, in the stone, like it's stone form. So in the loose bag, like when I bought, they just weigh by a kilo.
Right.
So I bought yesterday from the store.
Okay, and do you know the formula on it? So fertilizers would have usually 3 numbers on it, and they represent the amount of nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium that are in the fertilizer. Usually. Okay,
I think the potato one is nothing there because in the plastic bag. But in another one, they call Joe something. When they have a picture, they have the high number in the middle.
Right.
Like
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So so it depends on the fertilizer. You probably shouldn't just assume that it's good for everything. So. But the high number in the middle is high in phosphorus, and what phosphorus does is it encourages root development and it encourages flower development on plants. So if you're growing something that you need flowers first in order to get fruit, let's say if you're growing tomato plant, for instance. So tomatoes can't produce until the plant first produces flowers, because that's where the tomato fruit comes from. So then, yes, it would be good to use something with that high middle number, because that would stimulate the plant into producing lots of flowers. And then as a result from the flowers, you're likely to get a lot of good fruit set in there. But if you're growing potatoes, you wouldn't want anything that's high in that middle number, because you want potatoes to produce good roots. You want something that stimulates that nice big tuber development underground. Now, as it turns out, phosphorus is good for root development too, but it depends on the number. You wouldn't certainly want that number to be real high, like 50% or anything. So, usually with tomatoes, the granular fertilizer of choice tends to be a formula called 6-12-12. And it's 6% nitrogen, 12% phosphorus, and 12% potassium.
Okay, so normally I use like 20/20 for everything. So now because I just buy differently. So and then I think the best thing I do, I have old Kevlar, the fit in the freezer.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
I'll bury on the ground. One week you can see different.
Yeah.
Maybe stay with the old-fashioned way.
No, well, that's good, as you know. And our first caller today was talking about that very thing about the new moon in June and bringing in the capelin and using the capelin when you're planting potatoes. It was certainly, obviously, it worked. It fed generations in Newfoundland long before chemical fertilizers and synthetic fertilizers were available. But just in terms of some of the other things you mentioned, the garlic, for instance, the yellow tips on the garlic. It's not unusual, really, because the garlic sometimes will sprout up a little bit early in the season because it was planted last fall. And when it sprouts up, that new growth is just subject to a little bit of damage from cool temperatures. So it could be just that the tips were damaged because of some of those cold nights that we had. We even had a frost, in the early days, and some of the garlics were actually showing that foliage already at that point. So,
compare with my friend, we went around see his garden. His garlic was 2 times higher than me and no yellow at all.
Yes. Yeah.
Comparison. So that's why I asked a question.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Just before you go, though, it's not probably accurate to compare your friend's garlic to yours because there's a lot of factors, right? So certainly the soil is a factor. It could be that his is in a really protected area. And also the varieties. Some varieties grow much bigger than others. So his could be bigger just because he is growing a different type than you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We all grow differently.
We do.
Right? And our gardens grow differently. All right, it is gardening day here on The Signal, and I've got a bunch of emails to go through. So Tim Walsh, nursery manager, Mum Botanical Garden, is here. If you want to join the conversation, and I'm just seeing there's still some folks in the queue, so we'll be getting to you. I'm going to get to a couple of emails and get back to the phone queue, but 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. The text line, 709-327-8206. Emails, thesignal@cbc.ca. Every so often I still do check Twitter as well. Not very often, but I got an alert because someone sent me a DM. I gave up on seeds, and there's seedlings in the greenhouse now. Can Tim explain the difference between indeterminate and determinate tomatoes and what we are supposed to do?
Okay.
Today's the day.
Today's the day. That's right, yeah. So the main difference between the two of them is an indeterminate is a tomato plant that it's often called a vine, but it's not a vine really because it doesn't have the ability to vine. It can't vine without us providing support. But it continues to grow. It really will continue to grow for quite some time as long as it's got something to climb up on. If it doesn't have something to climb up on, it's going to spill down over the side of the pot and grow along on the ground. Where a determinate type doesn't do that. The determinate type is often called a bush tomato, where it stays low, stocky plant. It is multi-stemmed as opposed to just the indeterminate type, and in fact, when you're growing an indeterminate type, and it's growing up a support that you provide it with, you have the job of getting in there, and where the plant wants to grow more branches, you've got to pinch those off. So you'll see them on almost any tomato plant when they starts to grow. You'll have the main stem growing up straight, and then you'll see side leaves on that main stem, all normal. But then what happens between that little crotch between the side leaf and the stem, you'll see what looks like what is a new stem wanting to start. And you've got to pinch those off and only allow that central stem to grow. And what will happen is that you'll get a really strong plant then. You'll get nice flower trusses on that main stem. What happens if you allow those others to grow, then the plant becomes very difficult to control because the branches are going off in all directions. And then it's got a huge amount of top to support, so it often weakens the plant. You don't get the same number of flower trusses that happen, and therefore you don't get the same number of tomatoes in the end. Where bush types tend to be able to do all of that kind of on their own. You may have to do some little bit of pruning just to kind of clean it up and maybe shape it a little bit or confine it to an area. But generally they all do okay. Now, they still all, even though it's a bush type and it has that ability to kind of maintain its own shape, it would still benefit from a cage or something like that. Tomato cages, they're almost like upside down. Well, not upside down cones, but they're pointed at the bottom, and there's the bottom part you'll stick into the pot or into the soil, and there's these circular hoops that just hold that main part of that plant into this cone, and it actually helps to support it, so that when it gets top heavy with rain outdoors, and especially when the fruit are set and fruit are starting to develop, they're going to get heavy. That has a tendency to drag the plant down. So as long as you have something to hold the plant in place, then you'll probably get some really good results.
Here's another note before I get back to the phones. I divided and replanted some very old rhubarb early last year. It has come back strongly and has even produced flowers, which I've cut off. One of your guests said recently that we shouldn't harvest it this year, but wait until next year. Does this advice still hold? If so, should I cut it back? How much? It's very big. Thanks.
Yeah. So garlic is a really strong plant. So as long as it has come back strong, so it sounds like they got good results from that division, and the new plant sounds like it's growing. It doesn't mean that you can't harvest any of it. But, with a really strong plant that's been established for quite a while, you can harvest quite a lot off of that, and still the plant will continue to grow. It is a perennial plant. Remember that it is a plant that needs to grow. It has to go through that cycle. So if we pull a huge percentage of those leaves away, then unless the plant has a really strong root system, it may not have the strength to kind of rebound from that. So yes, harvest some of it, but just be mindful of that, and remember that next year you'll be able to harvest a lot more.
Great. And let's see. Let's go to Ron, who's on the line from St. John's. Hi, Ron.
Hi. How you doing, Adam?
Good. How you doing?
I had a question for Adam, because I called in last week and spoke to Dan. I was looking for wondering if Tim is aware of any variety of plum tree that's resistant to black knot.
There's one called, is it called Shiro or Shiloh maybe? The biggest challenge, Ron, is going to be finding them here, because you are at the, I guess not at the mercy. That sounds like unfair, but you're basically your options are whatever the nurseries have in stock. So I guess probably the best thing for you to do is to just call and see who has them. Unfortunately, there's a lot of black knot in plums, and there's very few that are black knot resistant.
Is that a global thing, black knot, or is it just more?
It's not just us, but it produces well in cool, damp conditions. So, so it's definitely us. And what it is...
That's why I lost all my plum trees last year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know, yeah. And it's a fungus, so the black knot, when I was a kid, I used to think it was bird poop, and I realized afterwards what it was. And it's that knot, what you're seeing, it's a fungal growth on the branches of the stem, and it's choking out the bark on the stem and disallows nutrients and moisture to pass beyond that point and up to the rest of the tree. So the tree doesn't have any new terminal growth at the tips. And then when the black knot then matures, it actually cracks open and releases spores. And so then there's millions of spores that are released into the air, and they fall everywhere. But whenever they fall on susceptible plants, which are plums and cherries, then they grow and cause the problem. So the problem is that they are growing on the native population of cherry trees as well. And so if you look anywhere along the roadside or anywhere in the woods, you'd probably see it growing quite happily on our native plants. And so the challenge is then, how can you grow a plum tree that's not resistant if there's spores in the air every year? And the likelihood is you're going to get it. So I'm sorry, Ron, I don't know names offhand, but I would suggest giving a couple of the nurseries a call. They have their stock list, and they'd be able to tell you.
I've already done that, but they don't seem to be anyone that's aware of, with the knowledge of what might be resistant to black knot.
Yeah.
There's a variety online called Aurosa, Aurosa, but I'm not sure if it claims to be black knot resistant, but I'm not sure if it's credible or not.
Yeah, and unfortunately, unless you know somebody here who's growing that one and has had success, it'd be difficult to say whether it is or it isn't.
I might give it a try and see if it works.
Yeah.
Then I can call you and let you know.
Yeah, well,
please do.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the Southern Shore in Kingman's Cove for Mews, and have great memories of just fields of plums, and in the fall you'd harvest them, and also have mischievous memories of squirting the stones between my fingers on the school bus, those types of things. But they're delicious, and my grandmother used to make great plum jelly and plum jam. And unfortunately they're all gone now, every one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we had it for about 150 years, and then I grew up on the Southern Shore as well, and the same thing. The original plum trees, but they're all dead now.
Yeah. Ron, I just did a quick search here on my phone, and actually there isn't one called Shiro, but it says some resistance to this disease. So whether there's one that's 100%, but Shiro is one, and Santa Rosa is another one. Yeah.
How do you spell that?
Shiro.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 You want to have to breed our own, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. That's it.
All right.
All right. Thanks for calling.
Tim.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid in Mount Pearl, right? We had cherry trees.
Yes.
And, they all had black knot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they would. Yeah, they're all in the same. They're in the same plant family, right? Yeah. So they're all subject to that, unfortunately.
We've got, there's like a bunch of emails to get through, and also one other note from maybe earlier today. We live in the east end of St. John's. One of our mature maple trees is dropping its new leaves. The tree has had tar spot on its leaves for a few seasons. This seems to be something different. Wondering what treatment options are available. Thank you for any suggestions. Regards, Margaret and Tim.
Well, it's interesting that a maple is dropping its leaves prematurely, because maples are pretty tough.
Yeah.
And assuming it's not some sort of special maple that has, a borderline hardiness, because there are some, especially at the Japanese maples and things like that, that are bred a little differently. I wouldn't think the problem is connected to the black tar spot, because tar spot is a common fungal problem, but it never really negatively impacts on the overall health of the plant, other than the fact that it looks bad when all these black tar spots are in it. And you don't actually see that tar spot until the autumn, which is interesting, because that's when us at the Botanical Garden get calls saying, oh, my maples all of a sudden have black spots, and what is that? But the fungal spores are there already. So if you were to look at a maple tree now as its leaves are opening up, you would see these tiny little bumps in a circular pattern on the leaf, but they're still green. And it's only just like the black knot in the cherry trees, as the fungus matures in the fall is when it starts to become pretty obvious. So what would be causing it to drop now would be a difficult thing to say. Other than, some sort of frost damage from a late frost or something like that, or some other environmental thing that's happening around there. Was there any, if I had the caller here, I would question whether they were doing any work around the root system. Is it a newly planted plant, for instance, and how is it planted, and those types of sort of more cultural questions that would help to identify maybe some reason as to why it's prematurely losing its leaves.
Yeah, apparently it's a mature one. So Margaret, if you're still listening, feel free to give us a call for a follow-up for further diagnosis. 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. Yeah, odd.
Yeah, and we're not seeing that anywhere. It's not a common thing this year. So
okay.
Sometimes when you do get calls like that, it's significant with other plants as well, and other plants within the same group. But no, maples are generally one of the tough ones, and in fact they're even a problem with some parts of town, especially downtown, where they're growing so well and seeding around everywhere and causing all kinds of problems.
Here's one. Wondering about bindweed. I actually will take goutweed over the bindweed.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
that's a
bold statement for gardening day on that one.
Yeah.
Wow. But my question is, can I cold compost these weeds without worry of them coming back? Will they take root in the compost?
Right. No, it won't. Well, I shouldn't say it won't. I will say it won't if you only compost the tops. So the thing about bindweed is, so it's a vining weed that, and it's perennial. So its root system is there all year long. And then in the springtime, it'll start to grow all these fresh shoots, and they'll attach themselves to whatever they can. And if they're in the garden, they'll attach themselves to tall perennials, and they'll grow up the stem and choke them out. If they're on a fence, or especially you see them in chain link fence and they're all gone throughout the chain link, it's really difficult to get rid of. So if at this point in the season there are no seeds on there, it's not even flowering yet, and those are the things you don't want to put in your compost, like seeds, for instance. So yes, right now, chop it off to the ground and throw all that into compost, and that'll be fine. And then anytime you see it, which you will over the next while, I don't mean any time, but like go out periodically every couple of weeks or 3 weeks or so, and then cut it again, and just keep cutting it and keep cutting it. If you have a small patch, you'll absolutely get control over it like that, because the plant needs to photosynthesize. It has to grow, and eventually what will happen is it'll use up its stored energy in the root system by pushing up these new stems, and you're cutting it down, and it doesn't have the ability to photosynthesize, so it's not able to produce its own food. So what happens is that the root system weakens, and it weakens, and it weakens, and then it can't do it anymore, and so you've won. But it may take a whole season to do that, because they're not weeds for a reason. They are weeds for a reason. I mean, in that they are a problematic plant that really is persistent. So if you're persistent, you'll get control of that for sure.
All right. Here's one from Tessa. What can I do to get my rhubarb to grow with thick stalks? It is in full sun and watered regularly.
So rhubarb is a big feeder plant. You've probably heard that before. It's just because what we're eating are these stems that grow on these and they grow these very large, wide leaves. And so these leaves need to grow tall and big in order to get big stems. So really what you need to do with rhubarb is give them lots of nitrogen. They really need that nitrogen in order to grow those big leaves. That's what we want. And so if
nitrogen is big.
Nitrogen is big.
Lots of different ways you can get nitrogen
Absolutely.
on rhubarb.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Lots of different ways. And if you think about traditionally, one of the common gardening practices was to cover your rhubarb bed in manure, in cow manure, or a sheep manure, any kind of animal manure. And why that works so well is because of the urine, because of the urea, which is a type of nitrogen that's in that manure, and that filters down into the soil, and the roots start taking that up, and then the plant gets very large. So you can get that same result from using well-produced composts, other types of organic matter, and of course you can then simply fertilize it. Assuming that the plant is in good, strong. It's not strong, but good, decent soil, and that it's not struggling with pushing out roots. So the thing is that rhubarb wants to grow a big root system, and if you've got it down in pretty poor soil, gravelly soil, that sort of thing, it just can't do that. And then it can't support good top growth if it doesn't have a really strong root system. So nice deep rooting zone, lots of good organic soil, and then continue to feed that soil on a regular basis.
All right.
Yeah.
Here's a note from Jim. Is the balsam tree native to the island of Newfoundland?
Yes, it is. And balsam fir, I'm assuming.
That's what. Yeah, he didn't specify, but that's what I assumed.
Yeah, that's what we normally use here as a Christmas tree. Then,
Let's go to the line. We've got Tim on line 1 calling in from St. John's. Hi.
Yes, hi. How are you guys this morning?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Well, I'm phoning about that maple tree that we had sent you the email about.
Yeah.
No, it's the age of the house, so it's 45 years old, I guess.
Wow.
And there's 5 of them in the backyard. They're just your old regular Canadian maples, and they're huge. I mean, they're 40 feet high.
Yeah.
And even the one that cracked off in the hurricane has now that the leaves are out, looks like a tree again.
Right, yeah.
So everything's going except the one that's closest to the house.
Yeah.
Now, we haven't done any big gardening. I mean, I've put beds in around it over the years.
That's okay.
And I additionally always have 70, 80-pound dogs that love to dig. So, which is actually where I put my raised beds over where the dog puts holes. and anyway, but no reason. And everything else is quite healthy. And this one, the leaves they're wrinkly.
Yeah.
And they haven't. Because they haven't completely opened, and they're just falling like crazy. And if you walk away from it and turn back, it looks brownish.
Oh, interesting.
Just a little bit.
And they're dropping off, eh? It's just not that they're slow to open; they're actually wilting.
Yes, wilting. Margaret just commented that they look like they're dry, but how could they be dry? One day of sun and they dry out.
Yeah, and is this the first season you've noticed that, or is that has it been always kind of a run to the litter sort of thing, or is it?
Oh no, I mean the base of it is probably 2.5 feet in diameter, and as it branches out, there's 1.5 feet in diameter and 1 foot in diameter. I mean, it's a huge tree.
It sounds like a huge plant.
And 1 of 5.
Yeah, and usually there's very little that will take down a maple, Even the huge dreaded elm spamworm infestation we had, many years ago, where the maples were just, covered with caterpillars and defoliating them completely in the middle of the summer. They were able to bounce back from that. So, when I hear something like this, it's usually specific to a particular plant, because if you've got 4 or 5 of them in a row and all the rest of them are looking perfectly normal and one is not, then there's clearly something physical usually happening. Because if it was something from an insect perspective or from a disease perspective, they'd all have it, because they're grown so close to each other that they would all, whatever one was infected with, it would just easily transfer to the other. So yes,
so just part of nature, I guess.
It could be. It could be, but maples live quite a long time. But it could just be that this one has given up a little bit earlier. And then the only other thing that, as I mentioned before you called, when Adam first read your message, was that usually, that sometimes it's something physical. And having dogs dig around the base of a maple tree is certainly not going to cause that problem.
No, you wouldn't think so. I mean, 45 years and there's flower beds and raised beds. My rock garden is next to it with all the hens and chicks and all that.
That wouldn't cause a problem.
And there for years.
Yeah, and so the only other thing that we sometimes see or learn when you have these discussions is that people are cutting grass and like using whippersnippers. And too close to the base of the plant, and they actually cut a ring around the bark of the tree, and then of course it interferes with the tree's ability to take moisture up.
No, I'm careful of that, and because the no mow May, which of course here extends into June, I have 2 feet of grass in my backyard. I haven't touched it. I actually got the lawnmower out today.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
But I haven't used it yet, so no, and no whippersnipper near it or anything.
No, that's right. I mean, that would have been done in previous years, the whippersnippering kind of thing. So, but if you're careful with that, then it's really it's a bit of an anomaly, really, to know why that one. Other than this fact that just chalk it up to the fact that nothing lives forever, and every once in a while you lose a tree from a collection for some difficult to understand reason.
Okay, well, I guess the main reason we contacted you in case this was, the spots that are around them, is this a common thing happening this year, but not this is a one-off. And of course, I'm looking at my backyard. We have a green belt over the neighbor's fence, and I'm looking at a sea green and one withered up tree. So just one sick tree, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, you could also look at it as an opportunity too to bring in something else, and take, if the maple tree dies and you take it down, then you've got a wonderful spot to plant something new, and maybe something with a little bit more variety, maybe.
Yes, if we can get the roots, I would imagine we'll just cut it off and we'll just stay there. Probably put a bird bath on the.
Oh yeah, there you go.
There you go. Well, we started gardening there 7 or 8 years ago, and of course the maple trees that we love, we've been cursing them for the last.
I know. Everything starts off so small, and you never think you live long enough for it to be a problem, and then all of a sudden. There it is.
Yeah, we moved here from Torbay, and we didn't have any trees in Torbay. We moved to Newfoundland. Oh, look at all the beautiful maples. And anyway, very good. Okay, thank you, guys.
Okay, good luck with it.
Thanks, Tim. And thanks to Margaret, too.
See you at Folk Festival, Tim.
Oh, yes, for sure. Can't wait for that.
Yes, good, perfect.
Yes, tis the season. Let me check. I think there's one extra gardening question we didn't get to. Here's one from Tammy. And excuse the pronunciation on this one. I seem to have inadvertently introduced garden symphyllin into my vegetable garden from compost. Do you know what that is?
Say that again.
Symphyllin, Symphyllin. Okay. I can't even read today.
Into her compost?
Into my vegetable garden from compost.
Okay.
Do you have any tips on how to control or deal with it? I lost all my strawberry plants last year, and I think this may have been the culprit.
Well, okay. So, all right, I'm doing a quick Google search here now too.
Hey.
So it's a caterpillar, a centipede, basically.
I knew that deep down.
Yeah, you knew that, didn't you? You were just about to tell me.
Yeah, just about to. Yeah. You know what? Let me tell you.
Yeah. So it looks like it's just a common centipede, which are not uncommon. I just question as to whether that's what's causing the problem, because centipedes are very normal, and in fact, it's sometimes a sign of healthy soil to see them out there. They're channeling, walking through the soil and burrowing into the soil, and just like worms are, and they're feeding on other insects that may even be causing the problem. So they're generally not plant eaters themselves. So I wonder what other problem might be there that these centipedes may be getting the blame for.
Yeah, and to lose all strawberry plants last year.
Yeah, that sounds unusual. Like strawberries generally are not lost to insects. They can be lost to fungal problems, but generally not insects. So I'm questioning whether the loss was a result of something else, probably a fungal problem or something like that.
So then if there's worries about a vegetable garden, what kind of things should be done?
Well, the thing about strawberries is that they're perennial plants. So they're there all winter long, and then they start to grow again in the spring. Every once in a while, though, you should refresh that strawberry patch. And generally, you take everything out, you replenish the soil, and then you plant back some small runners. And because strawberries do that, you get the main plant, and they run on these thread-like stems, and then another plant forms there, and it'll root, and that's kind of how your bed fills in over time. But you do have to pull all those out and start again, and replenish the soil, and also air circulation around strawberries, especially when they're in mass like that, can be a problem too, and that can sometimes result in causing some of those fungal problems because there's not enough circulation around them. So maybe that might be a cultural thing that they might want to think about.
Here's a note I got from Bill Jeffrey. Gardening helps my mental health by regulating and distracting me from personal issues. That was from a participant from Thrive Gardening and Men Survey 2024. Yeah. When it comes to supporting good mental health, gardening can play a part. There's a growing body of research behind this. In that survey that was mentioned, 91% of respondents said gardening helps boost their mood. And so thanks, Bill, for that note. I will also say an evening of men's mental health, Thursday, June 13th, is happening this week. I'll be hosting it. It's featuring Dr. Robert Whitley and a bunch of other folks. I believe from Bill's note, it's sold out. But if you tune into tomorrow's show, that's that ticket giveaway I was going to mention. I've got a couple more tickets to give away. You can find. You'll hear some details from me on that tomorrow. We only got about a minute and a bit left. What's happening? What do we got looking?
So Mr. Garden Tour is happening in St. John's on Sunday, July the 14th, from 9:30 to 4:30. So that's with the Newfoundland Horticulturist Society, and they got 6 gardens all in one day this year. And you buy a passport, and you get to go visit other beautiful gardens. So it's really inspirational because you get to walk in someone's backyard and talk to them and kind of get a sense of what they're.
But only on that day.
Only on that day.
Not any other day. We don't want that to happen.
Well,
again.
You don't actually get the addresses until the day of. So that's one way of avoiding people coming a little bit early. You don't know where you are until the day of. The other couple of things at the garden too. Booze and Botany is an event we've been having on a regular basis, and there's one on June 21st, and not this Friday coming, but next Friday, and it's it's going to be cocktails. So it's going to be cocktails that are inspired by edible plants, herbs, and that sort of thing.
Nice.
And tickets are available, still a few tickets left. And this coming weekend, Gnome and Garden Fair on Saturday and Sunday. So the gnomes are out, the garden gnomes. They're after coming out from hiding, and they're still kind of hidden. And your job is to come and try and find them.
Very cool.
So it's a fantastic day, especially for the family, to come out and try and search the garden for all these gnomes. And also on the same day, Plant Lovers Tour. Every Saturday at the Botanical Garden, we have a Plant Lovers Tour. Free. Just come in you pay your admission and come in and get a tour. Todd Boland is doing one this weekend on rhododendrons because it's rhododendron season now.
Rhodo season is here. Oh, amazing. I can get up to Ross's spot. I think Ross Travers is in next week. Tim Walsh, thank you so much for this.
Been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, nursery manager for the Botanical Garden for Memorial University. That is it for today's show. Tomorrow, the talk is called No Indians Here. Mi'kmaq elder Kelvin White and his nephew Ivan J. White, Chair Indigenous Performing Arts NL, will be by to discuss Confederation's legacy for Indigenous peoples in this province as part of National Indigenous History Month. That's the conversation tomorrow. Don't miss it. For today, hey, thanks for listening, and get out there in your gardens, folks. Cheers.